And with that, I think we're ready to move on to the match. I always enjoy the graphic that tells us it's the loser's match. Like, could be interpreted as a slight dig at the players, but of course, uh, it's meant in the literal sense. So you see both players keeping sevens.
Yeah, Dingo's hand looks nice as a frog. Turn 2 frog on the play seems pretty good. Only one land.
Yeah, turn to frog is like honestly the thing you want to do in every matchup, right? And Dingo has to be very happy to be able to cast it on the play. It's pretty resistant to red removal, so that's pretty strong.
Yeah. Uh, Interestingly enough, it looks like Dingo's going to pass up on the frog. Maybe
Really valuing
considering,
that spell stun on a 2-drop.
yeah, I think considering that Seth didn't play a 1-drop, that maybe Seth's hand is 2-drop dependent, and hoping to play that frog on turn 3 with spell pierce and spell snare up. But I mean, we know that Seth hand was just the one land, but
Yeah, the gamble on keeping this hand paid off. Surveil lands in general pretty powerful addition to modern. It's been not quite a year, but almost a year with those in the format, and certainly they sometimes let you widen your range of keeps. I'm sure that Seth especially appreciates them as a person who's famously an enjoyer of keeping hands in general.
yeah, I don't think Seth would have kept his hand without Surveil Land in this deck. Increased the odds of him hitting by a significant amount. Uh, Dingo had the choice of Spell Pierce or Spell Snare and went with the Snare, which I don't know. There's an Ajani potentially coming out, but otherwise the Spell Pierce looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think he's probably, omitted the frog on turn 2, and he's trying to play it on turn 2, and Spell Pierce is just the best at protecting frog from any removal spells that could go its way. Although if Seth had a third land and a static prison, which would be a potential way to remove the frog, then Spell Pierce would not be of much help here. So the
Yeah, no,
lineup
it's
actually
definitely
ends up not working out too great for Dingo in this spot.
no. Though Dingo having the go for the throat in hand makes the all the creatures less scary than the non-creatures.
Hmm. This is an interesting spot. I guess Dingo is just attacking. Probably happy to spend a go for the fraud on Ajani, plus discard a card to beat the cat in combat.
Yeah, and then probably play land, play Murktide. We could see Dingo hold up the spell pierce again. I
Yeah,
think I
we
like
see
playing
like
with
Dingo has seen that Seth already has missed a land drop, so it's that much more valuable. But getting a Murktide down puts Seth in a tough spot.
yeah. Plus, with no energy and the frog now having 3 toughness, that spell pierce basically counters a lightning bolt or galvanic discharge, anyways.
Ooh, another Galvanic Discharge is so bad for Seth, and it's also like a little bit of a gamble on Dingo's side. Not too big of a gamble, but there's only 2 static prisons in Seth's list, basically, so there's a good chance that he just doesn't have a way to remove those creatures, and they really gotta take over the game if they get to attack once, really.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty scary. And those if Seth draws another red source, can potentially answer at least one of these threats.
The Spell Pierce finally is getting to is
And
get put
we
into
get to see some
use.
nice synergy too with the frog and Murktide.
Mhm. That's 12 damage coming Seth's way, so
Yeah, that's a lot. that basically makes either one of those threats lethal, right?
Mhm.
So Seth, even if Seth draws a red source, can Seth get out of this? Uh,
Uh, I find it pretty hard to believe.
yeah, I don't think Static Prism or bust. And
Yep, Lightning Bolt not the best card against Dingo's deck in general.
so now into sideboarding, we see Seth immediately puts in Unlicensed Hearse. Definitely what you want against the deck that's trying to fill its graveyard and use it.
Yeah, and even more so, just Chain to the Rocks, pretty excellent over other removal spell options. Blood Moon is getting cut, which makes sense. While there is no swamp in Dingo's deck, it has 3 islands and plenty of fetches, so it's probably going to be able to fetch a pair pretty consistently.
Yeah, there's something to be thought of for cutting out all the black mana.
Hmm.
I think I agree with what Seth has done. And we see
Well, Dingo
yeah,
has a full set of Toxic Deluges, a
yeah,
pair
we're
of
getting toxic
Surgical
here.
Extractions, gets left in the sideboard, not interested in answering Flash this way.
Yeah, just the one Cling to Dust kind of as a permanent Flageant. Oh, two Cling to Dust now, the extra one brought in from the board.
What would you think about using Surgical in such a matchup? Surgical typically is pretty excellent against the Jeskai control deck because really that deck is left just fretless if you Surgical Plage away, while Boros is just a mid-range deck. It has so many threats that Surgical is typically a pretty bad trap against those types of decks. So
Yeah, I definitely don't like it. I think Nile Spellbomb is more my speed, a card that replaces itself even
mhm.
when it doesn't do anything. But, or, of course, the Cling to Dust, which is the ideal answer.
Turn 2 Frog once again for Dingo, although this time on the draw. While Seth has an even worse hand than the
Yeah,
previous game.
well, this 5 though looks pretty good. And Seth's going to keep it.
It
Probably get rid of.
does. All the YungDingo Masters does match up pretty well against it if he decides to keep 2 lands and 2
Yeah,
1-drops.
I expect Seth either going to put Aether Hub or Mountain on the bottom as the second card. And yeah, Dingo's Bow Masters is going to be pretty nice. So Seth being on the plate is, you're on Team Seth, is a silver lining. Is whichever one of these 1-drops he decides to play, he's going to get a hit in.
So if Seth leads on Ragavan with Etherhab, he could actually steal a Psychic Frog and play it.
That's nice.
Now, yeah, he goes for the well for the upside. We'll see if that's gonna happen.
Well, it's good upside, and I think there's the possibility if Seth also just draws Red Guardian, he gets to trigger the Ocelot as well, whereas it wouldn't do the. Ooh, and turn 2 Fable actually potentially here for Seth. It's pretty nice.
Not too bad either.
Cling to
Cling to Dust. Yeah. Well, no cards in the graveyard currently, so even if
no
you
card in the
remote
graveyard,
the
but you can play a little game if you keep the treasure open and you force Dingo to not be able to fetch on your end step.
well, sure.
But yeah, Seth
Force, I guess,
more
is a strong
wisely, I think,
word.
decides to go with the Fable.
Bowmasters is still gonna be excellent this game, and taking down the Ragavan and then making Fable virtually unable to cycle any cards away, that's gonna be a huge deal.
Yeah, this is looks like a pretty good spot for Dingo. The Surveil land hit, getting another land in the graveyard. Kind of what you ideally would have a spell for Murktide, but still just any cards good.
And Seth has free cast that he doesn't really want to. I guess you can cycle one reasonably. It does mean the army becomes a 2/2 creature, which then means that your Fable token would trade for it, so that's not ideal either.
Well, yeah, you're also just getting the 2 triggers from it anyways. In a few, I guess, yeah, with 1 card, it's not so bad, but still pretty
Mhm.
rough spot for Seth because the second part of Fable normally would be really good here, because his cards aren't that good on this board. But the Bowmaster's just really giving both sides of the blade here.
I I do like the creature suite of this blue-black deck, where you have Psychic Frog and Murktide Region, which basically ask for either black or white removal. They are really good against red removal, and then Orcish Masters tends to be pretty good against cards like Solitude, Prismatic Ending, or Static Prison.
Yeah, no, it's a really nice package here that Dingo's put together. Though this, with knowing Seth's hand of these 2 removal spells, this Ocelot could get out of control.
Mm-hmm. That is true. The hand actually ended up not being too bad. The trade for Orcish Masters was acceptable.
But Deluge is going to clean it all up.
Yeah, with Deluge, there is no fear and really tapping out for the frog. You can let Seth make however many cards he wants to, really.
Yeah, well, we probably see Chain to the Rocks happen here. Then probably the creatures will get deluged away, and then will be a little bit of a battle of top decks since Murktide and Static Prism are kind of gonna neutralize each other for a while.
Oh, there's also a counter spell in Dingo's hand, and there's also a Clink to Dance that makes sure
Yeah,
that he
he's gonna be
gets
ahead, but
production
Seth
going.
gets the first draw, and with Dingo won't have an answer to things on the board. Well, or wouldn't if that Fatal Push hadn't come up, and now it's looking all Dingo.
Certainly. So what is Seth looking to draw here?
I think it's got to be with 1 energy, probably just a Raptor into Flage, something like that. Maybe even just Flage.
That sounds good. Maybe Raptor into Ajani.
Milling Flage with
Here it
would have
comes.
been nice, but yeah, Raptor. Let's start with that. Raptor and Ajani's nice too. Yes.
Is Seth perhaps considering grabbing Giganta instead? Probably not.
The main pro for that, I think, is if your deck's full of a lot of reactive cards, you don't want Raptor to hit one of those while your opponent doesn't have a creature in play. But on the other hand, you, letting Dingo untap also seems kind of dangerous.
Yeah, it's also a deck full of counter spells. Maybe not full, but it's a deck with counter spells, so certainly a tough decision to make.
We'll see. Dingo decides to keep up Counterspell and Cling and Push. Play a Frog. Well, Seth looks like Seth made the right decision because he would have hit that Celestial Purge otherwise.
Good call.
And awkwardly, Seth doesn't really want to use either of these spells here because the Prism requires energy upkeep and the Purge requires the Giganta to be delayed another turn, but he's kind of forced to do it.
Yeah, you also really want to save your prison for the regen because
Yeah, because
you
the
can't
Purge
use
can't answer it.
charge on it. All right, cling to dust, join gear on the land. Not too great, perhaps, but a Murktide Regent is
Yeah, we'll see if you know Dingo
coming
still
down.
keeps the cling to dust in the graveyard. So with another surveil land, that basically has enough food for next turn. And yeah, but it's kind of after this prison, Ajani, and Fatal Push, we're kind of
Kind of even.
yeah.
Pretty close game so far. So
But Dingo's going to have that
Dingo.
cling to dust plus the surveil land plus another fetch land in hand to find another surveil land is actually probably worth more than this token right now.
Surely the token is also a one toughness creature, so makes an Orcish Bowmasters into a great top deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we surveilled a flooded shard on the graveyard. Enjoying another regent. It's not gonna be big though.
No, it's not that big, but still, that's why they're, I guess, was thinking about keeping it or not. But definitely still seems good. Dingo holds the Pluto Delta probably in case he draws another Psychic Frog.
Perhaps, although there is some slight incentive to play it and fetch
Yeah,
immediately because of
I,
Cling to Dust.
I think I would have played it, but Dingo draws the frog and looks great to have held it hidden.
Yeah, almost prophetic skills on Dingo's side. And getting pretty aggressive with the Murktide Regent, perhaps, although considering his attack. Here we go, 4 damage in the air.
It's an interesting spot. What do you think? What do you think of attacking there? A little dangerous against this with being at lower life and against this ocelot, but higher upside if Seth doesn't find a way to kill the frog.
Yeah, it does make sense to attack, right? It
Hmm.
means that you'll get there in 2 attacks for the most part, easily. And it is risky. At that point, with just 1 card in hand, Psychic Frog wasn't actually protected from Galvanic Discharge or even Lightning Bolt, if any of those are left in Seth's deck. I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, I don't think that any of there are more left. I mean, I think if I was in Dingo's spot, that's what I'd expect Seth to board out.
I guess it means that the frog is in Flage's range too, which is probably the most important. And it seems like we still are prioritizing defending ourselves from the Assault Pride over clocking.
Yeah, in that spot maybe it was even worth attacking with both because you could do another 5 damage if you discard the land to the frog and basically present lethal for next turn.
Mhm.
You still have to go for the throat for Gigantha if it comes, or if Seth makes a different play, you can go for the throat. That
Can we find lethal regardless next turn with the Psychic Frog's exile cards from the graveyard ability? Currently there's 5 power, so we need plus
yeah,
7, so
yeah. Like interestingly, here Dingo could go for the throat, the Ocelot, discard the other 2 cards to the frog, exile those 3, and
yeah,
cling. Yeah, and then make the Murktide bigger. Looks like the line to do it with.
that's a very nice play. And a very devastating one, I guess.
Yeah, if you're on Seth's side, you're just shaking your head because I think you basically can't win from this point, barring extraordinary things. Because you're also the static prison's going to go there,
Oh,
and that's just the nail in the
yeah.
coffin. Already, Seth
Uh,
needed to draw like perfect cards. I'm not even sure what perfect cards they would be, but
so we see Seth going down to 6 life. He's gonna draw his last pathetic card, and it's probably not gonna be of much use. The static prison even frees the Murktide
Yeah.
Vision to rub it in, I guess. And the YungDingo wins the match, which I guess means that Seth is eliminated from the tournament.
Oh,